Last week, the European Baseball Championships took place in Italy. 16 countries played a total of 48 games over a period of 8 days. No surprise that the Netherlands came away with the gold. They have without a doubt the best baseball players in Europe. Most of their talent comes from the Caribbean islands of Curacao and Aruba, but also a fair number of their players come from the continent. Israel and Great Britain were playing with teams in which about half of their rosters were players from abroad. On Spain's roster, only 2 were actually from Spain, the rest came from Latin America. Even Italy, which has a pretty good domestic baseball program, brought a team with almost half of the players from abroad. The Czech team, on the other hand, was entirely made up of players from the Czech Republic, which says a lot about the rising quality of talent in that country. But I talk enough about the Czech Republic in my videos. Today I want to talk about the country that finished 7th in this tournament, Croatia. 7 of their 21 players were from abroad, so it wasn't a total Croatian team, but that's still a lot fewer imports than what most countries were bringing. The Croatian team beat Germany 8-2 in group play. Germany is usually one of the top 5 countries in Europe, a WBC qualifier participant, and they've had a couple Germans make it to MLB, but Croatia beat them by a comfortable margin. The Croatians also beat Ukraine and then got blown out by a Spanish team that boasted a few ex-major leaguers. They then moved on to the quarterfinals where they had to face the Italians, traditionally Europe's second strongest country in baseball. But Croatia played tough, losing it by the respectable score of 8-5. In the placement round, they were blown out by the Czech Republic before beating Belgium 12-8 to finish 7th. While it's hard to use this tournament to judge each country's talent level, given the number of players from the Americas, it's still quite an accomplishment that a team of mostly Croatian players was able to beat some of the higher-ranked countries in Europe. So it really makes you wonder about how baseball is doing domestically in their country. Croatia is a small country of just 4 million people in southeastern Europe. It ranks 124th in area and 128th in population. Formerly a part of communist Yugoslavia, it's been independent since 1991 and fought a war to maintain that independence in the 90s. Despite their size and troubled history in the second half of the 20th century, they've achieved a lot in the world of sports. The biggest of those was of course their runner-up finish in the last FIFA World Cup in 2018. They've also won silver in Olympic basketball, and over 20 Croatians have played in the NBA, all since the early 90s. And they've won world championships in handball and water polo in the last 20 years. In last summer's Olympics, they were tied for 29th in the medal count, 26th in gold medals. So, in a country with a small population that already excels in other major team sports, it's hard for a sport like baseball to take off there, especially when none of its neighbors are playing it, but it has been played there for the last 4 decades. It's not for sure when baseball was first played there or who brought it into the country. Since it was a communist Eastern European country, we can guess that it was probably not allowed, or at least frowned upon, during most of their communist era. Like elsewhere in the region, baseball appeared in Croatia in the 1980s, but unlike most other countries in the region, baseball clubs were being formed as early as 1981, when it was still part of Yugoslavia, long before it was voted in as an Olympic sport. So Croatia would have had a head start on countries like the Soviet Union, which didn't officially allow it until 1986. The Croatian national baseball team made their first appearance in the European Championship in 1999, and have played in every edition since then, always finishing between 8th and 12th. In 2019 they were 11th, with 7 losses, and their only win coming against last-place Sweden. They showed some promise, losing by only 1 run to both Spain and Italy, but also suffered some lopsided defeats, 10-0 to Austria, 23-0 to France. They and Sweden would have been relegated to the B-level tournament, but since the tournament was expanded to 16 countries, they were allowed to remain for the 2021 tournament, where they finished 7th, their highest finish ever. In last month's WBSC World Ranking, Croatia was number 43, right between Peru and Uganda, up 3 places from the previous rankings. And they'll most certainly move up again with the points they've earned from their 7th place finish in the European Championship, possibly into the top 40. In 2009, Croatia was one of 8 countries to host games for the Baseball World Cup, in which they lost all 3 games they played, and failed to qualify for the second round. There is an organized amateur league consisting of 5 teams. Players from the US, Japan, and Venezuela have played for these clubs. There is youth baseball, school baseball, actual baseball fields, not fields meant for other sports, and a decent supply of equipment. So they're ahead of most countries in the eastern half of the continent. Though baseball has been played there since the early 80s, it remains a minority sport. In fact, there are a couple regions of the country that don't have organized baseball at all. With all the success they've had in other sports, it's easy to imagine why they would have a hard time attracting young athletes. But they always manage to get some kids on the field. One advantage baseball has in Croatia is that there is no other bat and ball sport to compete with. When asked why they choose baseball, several players said one of the reasons is that it's so different from the other sports played in the country. But without any bat and ball sports to compare it to, it also appears quite complicated to kids that are trying it out for the first time. But nowadays they have better resources for learning the game, like the internet and video games. So learning all the rules of the game in a country like Croatia isn't the daunting task it used to be. Getting the game played at an organized level in all parts of the country would increase the number of players, but realistically, given the variety of other major sports played there, they'll probably have to make do with a small number of players throughout the country. But that doesn't mean they can't be good at it. One advantage they have is the strong Croatian work ethic when it comes to sports. Their worldwide success in other sports didn't come by accident. They know how to train hard, work as a team, and get to the highest levels, and that mentality has worked its way into baseball. They now play year-round in Croatia, in the schools in winter, and in clubs in the summertime. For a lot of countries, it's hard for them to grasp the importance of playing as often as you can. Baseball is not a sport where you can get by on natural athleticism. You need to constantly play it and improve your skills. The Croatians seem to understand this, so they have the right mentality to reach the highest levels. The most famous ethnic Croatian in Major League Baseball was probably Roger Maris. The single-season American League home run record holder was born to 2 Croatian immigrants, but we have yet to see a Croatian-born Major League Baseball player. That will be the goal of every kid who takes up the game in the country. While they will be able to learn how to play the game properly in Croatia, they'll need to travel outside the country to get that additional training to get to the next level. Fortunately, Italy is nearby, and the MLB Academy there has turned out a number of players who have gone on to become the first from their countries to play in MLB and other professional leagues of the world. So they've got the right programs put in place inside their country, and access to higher level training not too far away. There's no doubt that we'll see a Croatian playing at the highest level one day. In Croatia, they're used to seeing their athletes on the medal stand at the Olympics, playing in the World Cup, and winning NBA titles. Whoever their first baseball star is, he's going to have some really high expectations to live up to. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya!